Hello, everyone, and welcome to this important episode of Ignition Time. The Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, there he is. What's up, Mitch? Had some very strong comments on the floor of this US Senate today, and he warned of retribution from the Republicans. He used the word scorched earth policy, and he warned of retribution from the Republicans if the Democrats eliminate the filibuster. Now, in case you're wondering what the filibuster is, it essentially allows the minority party to have some control over proceedings in the Senate. So what is the filibuster? The filibuster is the use of a procedural action in an attempt to delay or prevent a legislative vote in the United States Senate. So basically, any senator in the United States Senate, including Senator Rand Paul, who, by the way, spoke for 10 hours, okay, any senator in the United States Senate can take the floor of the Senate and essentially continue speaking until 3/5 of the United States Senate, until more than 60 senators vote to say, okay, stop. This allows the minority party in the United States Senate to try and block legislation. And this is very important for the Republicans right now, specifically the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell. The bottom line is that we live in a very divided climate right now. We live in a political climate where everything is about timing, opportunity, tribalism, and perception. And ending the filibuster would take away the last element of control that the Republicans have, and also in the future, the last element of control that the Democrats have. I want you to know my personal opinion. I do not think the filibuster would be ended because this would take us probably down a point of no return. That is my personal opinion. But let's go back to the filibuster. We'll provide you with a detailed video in the description section below that tells you exactly what a filibuster is, how it came about, so you can check that out. Let's take a look at this article on your screen from Axios, which says McConnell warns of Republican retribution if Democrats eliminate the filibuster. So folks, what's going on is that Democrats are under increasing pressure from progressives within their own party to essentially get rid of the filibuster for issues that are extremely important for the Democrats. But what is interesting is that conservative Democrats or moderate Democrats like Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Senator Kristen Sinema from Arizona have opposed the elimination of the filibuster, and that matters because without them, the filibuster cannot be eliminated. Now, as you can imagine, Mitch McConnell is very concerned about this, and he warned Democrats that eliminating the filibuster would, I quote, break the Senate and turn the chamber into a 100-car pileup when the chaos begins. Now, all of this is happening because Dick Durbin, who's a very influential Democrat from Illinois, said that the filibuster is making a mockery of American democracy and is holding the chamber hostage. Now, what's interesting is back in 2018, Dick Durbin opposed ending the filibuster, and lo and behold, at that time, Republicans had the majority. And Dick Durbin at that point in time said that it would be, I quote, the end of the Senate. Now, when he was asked, Dick Durbin was asked, hey, why have you changed your position? This is what Durbin told the Huffington Post. Senator McConnell taught me that I was wrong. He managed to use and abuse the filibuster so many times and stop the Senate in its tracks. So fundamentally, what is the filibuster? Here's a quote from Axios, from the Axios article. The filibuster, which makes most legislation in the Senate subject to a 60 vote threshold, because keep in mind, if someone ends up essentially talking for 10 hours, then essentially what needs to happen is 60 senators need to say, okay, stop, so that the legislation can continue. This allows the minority party the opportunity to essentially block pieces of legislation that they want to block. So the filibuster, which makes most legislation in the Senate subject to a 60 vote threshold, is meant to protect the interests of the minority, but it has increasingly led to deadlock and turned the Senate into a legislative graveyard for bills passed by the House. Basically, something can pass the House, end up in the Senate, and instead of passing in the Senate, if a bunch of senators say, hey, we don't like this, they can essentially use the filibuster to block that law. And so the law that's passed by the House does not pass the Senate, does not go to the president, and then it's dead. The Democrats actually bypassed this whole thing by using the process of budget reconciliation. But now the topic of the filibuster is emerging because the Democrats need to be able to achieve the rest of their agenda, and now they are looking at potentially ending the filibuster. Now, if you want to learn more about the filibuster, here's an article on your screen from the Brookings Institute. What is the Senate filibuster and what would it take to eliminate it? Now, I'll include a link to that article in the description section below. So if you want to check it out, be my guest. But the thing that's very surprising is what the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said on the floor of the Senate. He said, nobody serving in this chamber can even begin to imagine what a completely scorched earth Senate would look like. Here's an article on your screen that was published by the Wall Street Journal, and the Wall Street Journal says McConnell threatens pile-up if Democrats change filibuster rules. Now, keep in mind that Joe Manchin has floated the idea of requiring senators to be present to block bills. So a lot of stuff is going on, but folks, if the filibuster is eliminated, we could see even more gridlock, we could see even more division within the United States Senate. So let's take a look at some important comments from the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell on the floor of the Senate. He starts off by talking about the importance of the filibuster. Let's roll the tape and hear what Mitch McConnell had to say.
Quote, "The legislative filibuster is the most important distinction between the Senate and the House. Without the 60-vote threshold for legislation, the Senate becomes a majoritarian institution, just like the House, much more subject to the winds of short-term electoral change. No senator would like to see that happen. So let's find a way to further protect the 60-vote rule for legislation." That was the current Democratic leader, Senator Schumer, in April of 2017, less than 4 years ago. Here's another quote, Mr. President. "What about the nuclear option, doing away with the filibuster? I can tell you that would be the end of the Senate as it was originally devised and created, going back to our founding fathers. We have to acknowledge our respect for the minority, and that is what the Senate tries to do in its composition and in its procedure," end quote. That was the Assistant Democratic Leader, Senator Durbin, in 2018, about 3 years ago. A few years ago, 33 members of the Senate side signed a letter insisting that, quote, "we preserve existing rules, practices, and traditions regarding legislation." Now, under pressure from the outside, many of our Democratic colleagues are abandoning their stated principles as fast as possible. Yesterday, Senator Durbin said the filibuster is not a core principle, but, quote, "an offhanded clerical suggestion." An offhanded clerical suggestion. And a number of Senate Democrats are trying to pressure the senior senators from West Virginia and Arizona to abandon their own very recent commitments to honor this central rule of the Senate.
Now, the next segment is actually particularly interesting because the Senate Minority Leader talks about the Founding Fathers' vision. Let's go back to that Brookings Institute article that I showed you earlier. Let's put that up on your screen. And there's one section of the Brookings Institute article that is actually extremely relevant. While our understanding of the Senate as a slower moving, more deliberative body than the House of Representatives, meaning than the House, dates to the Constitutional Convention, the filibuster was not part of the founders' original vision of the Senate. Rather, its emergence was made possible in 1806, and there's a bit of a history lesson there. The decision was not a strategic or a political one. It was a simple housekeeping matter, as the Senate was using the motion infrequently and had other motions available to it to do the same thing. So in other words, it kind of crept in to the functioning of the Senate. But now, as we listen to the next segment with the Senate Minority Leader, he talks about the filibuster being an important part of the Founding Fathers' vision. And he says, and I quote, "the framers designed the Senate to require deliberation to force cooperation." In other words, he wants the filibuster to stay so that the Republicans can block certain aspects of the Democratic agenda. And to be fair, the Democrats can continue to block certain aspects of the Republicans' agenda when the Senate is flipped by the Republicans. It is going to happen at some point in time. If you look at the history of our country, the power of the Senate and the House and the presidency tends to flip left and right. But these are very important comments. Let's roll the tape and hear from Mitch McConnell about the vision of the Founding Fathers for the United States Senate and how this can impact the future of our country. Let's watch.
Mr. President, the framers designed the Senate to require deliberation, to force cooperation, and to ensure that federal laws in our big, diverse country earn broad enough buy-in to receive the lasting consent of the governed. James Madison said the Senate should be a complicated check against improper acts of legislation. Thomas Jefferson said great innovation should not be forced on slender majorities. Senate Democrats parroted all these arguments when they were the ones benefiting from minority protection. When President Trump pressed Republicans to kill the filibuster, our Democrat colleagues cried foul. And when our Republican majority stood on principle and refused to wreck the rules, our Democratic colleagues happily used the filibuster themselves. In some cases, they flat out blocked legislation, like Senator Tim Scott's police reform bill. In many other cases, Democrats did what minority parties always do, and leveraged the existence of the filibuster to influence must-pass legislation long before it got to the floor. There's so much emphasis on the most extreme bills that either party might pass with a simple majority. People forget that the Senate's 60-vote threshold is the only reason that any routine must-pass legislation is bipartisan, except during divided government. Big funding deals, appropriation bills, farm bills, highway bills, the NDAA. The Senate's 60-vote threshold backstops all of it. It's not just about controversial items, it's about everything we do. The Senate Democrats who are pressuring our colleagues from Arizona and West Virginia to reverse themselves are not just arguing for some procedural tweak, not a procedural tweak. They're arguing for a radically less stable and less consensus-driven system of government.
And then the final segment with the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is something that when I saw it, it made me go, what? The Senate Minority Leader said that nobody can imagine what a scorched earth Senate looks like. He said America did not vote for a new system of government by voting for President Biden because the control of the Senate is essentially evenly balanced. He said Americans want essentially a moderate approach. And he said again, America did not vote for a new system of government just because President Biden won the White House because of the balance in the United States Senate and the fact that Democrats actually lost seats in the House. Very interesting comments from the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Let's roll the tape.
Forget about enduring laws with broad support. Nothing in federal law would ever be settled. Does anyone really believe the American people were voting for an entirely new system of government by electing Joe Biden to the White House and a 50-50 Senate? This is a 50-50 Senate. There was no mandate to completely transform America by the American people on November 3rd. That may be what a few liberal activists want, but does anyone believe that millions of Americans thought that's what they were electing? Of course not. There's an ironic element to this whole conversation. Some Democratic senators seem to imagine this would be a tidy trade-off. If they could just break the rules on a razor-thin majority, sure, it might damage the institution, but then nothing would stand between them and their entire agenda, a new era of fast-track policymaking.
So that was it, everyone. The Senate Minority Leader on the importance of the filibuster and a dire warning about a scorched earth Senate. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. This is very important for the future of our country because what happens with the filibuster will determine whether the infrastructure bill, whether all the future aspects of the Democratic agenda go forward or not go forward in the near future. And if you watch this video 5 years from now, the survival of the filibuster will determine if by extension aspects of the Republican agenda go forward, because at that point in time, if the Democrats have the filibuster, you can be sure that they'll use it. Folks, politics is about timing, it's about opportunity, it's about tribalism, and finally it's about perception. So these politicians are going to continue changing their minds, but boy oh boy, some strong comments from the Senate Minority Leader. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. If you learned something new, please click the like button, please subscribe, please enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. I can promise you that Mitch McConnell, when he watches Ignition Time, he does click the like button. And Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, there he is, when he watches Ignition Time, he clicks the like button. They actually shake hands, and they use their right hand to shake hands and they use their left hand to click the like button. They do it simultaneously. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll see you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye. Look, these guys are actually shaking hands. Look, and they're clicking the like button. Thanks. Bye.